Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Everybody in Preacher Moss, host. That's right, host of the S.O.S. The Shadow Show here on More Better Mondays. I hope you're having a great Monday. I'm trying to make my Monday do what it do. I want to make sure that I give a shout out to one of my dear friends, one of my homies. Uh, Yesterday, Imam Jahari Abdul Malik out of the Washington, D.C. area lost his father of 98 years. I left a message for him. Please make dua for him. We love our elders, and his father was blessed to actually still be working at 98 years old. He was a pharmacist. Never heard anything but good things about his father, and I could look at the stock of Imam Jahari and see that his father was a tremendous man just by who he is. So let's make sure that we keep him in our prayers, brothers and sisters. As well, our sick and shut-ins, we're running them down until they feel better. Nancy Mustafa, hope you're feeling better. Sister Lorraine, hope you're feeling better. Brother Kendrick, he's on the mend. Hope you're feeling better as well. Sister Eleanor, our beloved, sweet Miss Eleanor, hope you are doing well. And if you guys have anybody else that you want to shout out, please make sure that we get the message out, the du'as out, the prayers out to people who, there's certain levels of struggling, if you will. There's emotional, there's physical, there's mental, there's spiritual. We just want to make sure wherever you need that prayer, that you can take it and you can put it where it's applicable. So, and I ask, please, Sultan and I do this show. Please don't be hesitant to make du'as for our families. For the time that we spend, and we try to, like I said yesterday, we try to give you good content. Allah's best planners. So, with that, I like to go ahead and begin the show. And let me tell you where I started with this. This is humanizing our brothers and sisters returning from prison. I'm reading. I'm not sure it's the Times, one of these periodicals, one of these big newspapers, and I pick up something, and it has to do with inmates. And we read a lot of stuff about inmates, recidivism, stuff like that, how hard it is. And I'm sure everybody has had the narrative with a friend or a family member that wound up being incarcerated, or as we say, had to take a state-sponsored vacation. But this was interesting because it really touched my heart in the context of what is the whole idea of rehabilitation? What is this idea of reform that we give people massive amounts of time, but we don't really give them the space or the safe space to really invest in themselves and turn their behaviors around? What is the balance of giving a person 30 years when they learn from their mistakes in two? You see what I'm saying? You see where I'm going with this? I bring this point up because I was reading a newspaper about a man, a man and a woman. I'll give full disclosure, both of them were black. They received compassion release during COVID. Well, we're still in COVID. But when COVID was really bad in the prisons, and it was extremely bad in the prisons, brothers and sisters, you're talking about high infection rates all over, not just the inmates, but also the staff. Let's make that point. So the people who had really, really bad preconditions, obviously prison was not a place for them. So they gave them compassion release. So if you did, 4 years on a 6 years bid, they give you compassion release. You do the rest on home monitoring. I like the idea. Okay. I like the idea. Number one, everybody don't need to be in prison for 30, 40 years. Okay. That was number one. Number two is, some people, they need to get out of it because this was not a healthy situation. Now, don't think that old preacher soft on crime. No, you do the crime, you're going to do the time. That's stated. But what is it when you do the time and you get out and people keep making you do the time over and over and over and over again? My point here. There's a gentleman who was released from prison. I think he had a year and a half, 2 years left on his sentence, right? He wound up getting out on a compassion release. He was on home monitoring. He turns his life around. He gets himself a job. He learns auto mechanic tech. He gets himself a job. He is living with his daughters. He's working. He has a job. He's productive, is what I'm trying to say. This man is productive. Before he left, well, two people, former Attorney General William Barr, better known as Fred Flintstone, signed the paperwork for compassion release for these guys, particularly in overcrowded situations. Let these guys out. Let them go home to their families. Let them start being productive ahead of this algorithm that you've inadvertently stuck on people. Donald Trump, before he left office, signed an executive order essentially saying that when COVID is over, all the people who've gotten compassion release, if you will, have to come back to prison to finish their sentences. I'm appalled. I'm upset. This makes no sense. You let them out of prison to be productive. They are productive. They are working. They're with their families. They're trying to be fathers and mothers. They're trying to connect with their children. These are important things in terms of how you build people in society, how you help people reform. And this whole thing is, hey, you've been out of prison year and a half. Once COVID is over, you need to come back to prison. And I had to marinate on that for a while, but just because I was hot. I was hot. And the question to me is, how do we humanize our brothers and sisters returning from prison? We're going to answer that question when we come back. Welcome to the Shout Out Show. Let's go ahead and get it started. Preacher Moss. There you are. I know you're looking at your screen going, that's a good looking black man. And you're right. I'm Preacher Moss, and you're not. Today I want to talk about Olive Branch Muslim Family Services, better known as the people who help people. And I need you to help the people who help people so they can continue to, you guess it, help people. Get it? Got it? Good. Olive Branch Muslim Family Services. Action you can see, compassion you can feel. Graphic now. All right, I love that guy. Um, Before I get into it, I want to shout out everybody in the shout out show, my shout out show family, shout out show soldiers. I know I haven't said it in a while, but if it's your first time coming to the shout out show, welcome. You're a part of something that's extremely special. I encourage you, if you have something to say, jump in the comment section. Get your shout out. Let us know who you are. We're definitely going to let you know who we are as a group and collectively and individually. So that's one thing I want you to know. But I want to get to my shout out family real quick. Let's go ahead and run it down, Reed, before I get into this long soliloquy. We got Mama Mars, better known as Mama Son. Thank God a lot that you are a helper for many coming home from prison. Stay blessed. Thank you, Mama Son. All right, next up, we got Sister Reed. Reed, what's going on, Sister Reed? You got to let us know how I worked out an international market yesterday with that jerk chicken, that rice, potato salad. I ain't eating none of that cabbage. But the greens, soda, pound cake, 7-Up cake, and of course a drink for $15. I remembered it all. All right, so I hope. Oh yes, thank you, Reed. Sincere condolences to Ma'am Johari, who's my main man, brothers and sisters. But I say, like, I know he's a man, but he's been a friend of mine for a long time. Going way back to the time we were on tour together in the UK. All right, continued prayers for our very own sick and shut in. Yes, indeed, we need to do that. And we got little brother, well, I like my son for two by the car to JT Tizzle in the house. I think I've commented to you that might actually be That might be a subject on the shout out show before we go on a hiatus, JT. I watched that. Brothers and sisters, if you go to YouTube, type in JT, was it baby movies? I now gotta look. See, I'm getting old, brothers and sisters. Hold on a minute. If you go to YouTube and type in baby videos, tell me what you see the third video is. It is shocking and appalling. If you go to YouTube, type in baby videos, and tell me what's the third video you see. It's not even the person. I'm talking about the actual video. Like, don't watch that video too long because you're gonna have to make wudu. That's a horrible video, brothers and sisters. That is filth. Okay. All right, JT. Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. And we got my main man, Altaf Rashid. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. What's going on, brother Altaf? Thank you so much for your comments yesterday, as well as everybody on the show yesterday. Great comments. Appreciate your support. Mr. 6 o'clock. What's going on, my brother? Thank you so much that you can make it. My main man, Fight the Power Word, and brother Elijah. What's going on, E? I hope you don't mind me calling you E, brother. I know the name is Elijah Salahuddin, but I call you E. And it's a term of endearment, brother. Thank you so much for coming on the show. We appreciate you. And Sister Reed is telling us that everything went well at the international market. I hope you sold a lot of dinners yesterday. And we want to give a shout out to our consultant producer who is here today. She was missing yesterday. I had all carpet tunnel trying to work all of the buttons and be on camera, but I did it. I'm just kidding. We'll give a shout out to Sister Satana. As I said yesterday, you're entitled probably to 100 more days off, considering we've done 500 of these things. So even 100 means that she was on the job for 400 episodes. But it's just so the numbers just get to be mind-boggling. Thank you. Well put. Well put. So this whole thing of humanizing our brothers and sisters returning from prison, I've had experiences, brothers and sisters, with brothers who come home, friends, close friends, relatives of friends, and the whole thing that's always bothered me about prison is you've legalized a way to stunt people's emotional, spiritual, and intellectual mobility by placing upon them a very, very tainted, a very, very toxic overlay of what we call punishment. So it's not rehabilitation, it's crime and punishment. Now, anyone here knows that, crime and punishment are not necessarily two things that are hand in hand. They're not. Because if you make it just crime and punishment, there's no room for redemption. There's no room for apologies. There's no room for personal growth. And I say this because, as I said at the top of the show, I'm reading about people who had done large amounts of time. There was a woman, she's 74 years old, originally from Washington, D.C. She's been locked up down in West Virginia on drug conspiracy charges. She got out of there on a compassion release, and she's been living with her son, having to go through all kinds of appointments and things like that. And they had talked about her coming back. She's done 16 on the 30, but they're talking about her coming back. She's 74 years old. She's 74 years old. And I'm going to give you a comparison to what we have here in the United States. You see, because here in the United States, when you get out of prison, like there's brothers in my masjid that have done some time, and I think I identify with them a lot, because it's always a situation of having to prove yourself and reprove yourself and reprove yourself. Every relationship has this thing where you have to reprove yourself. Now, for the inmate that comes out, that reproving process is called probation. When you come out when you come out of jail, the word is probation, but the word on the street is called what? Being on paper. So you got out of prison. Maybe you did 20 years. You're going to do 5 or 6, 7 years of probation. You're going to be on paper for 5, 6, 7 years. Let me explain to you the limitations of being on paper. You can't travel where you want to. You still have drug tests. a lot of cases. You have to take employment that may not be suitable, and definitely 9 times out of 10 is not a living wage. And the people that you're working for, they skim off at the top. You're forced to live in a place where part of your salary in some cases goes to the halfway house, which is not a suitable situation because you're in a place with people who are trying to figure out something at the same time you're figuring out. And sometimes it's good to be away from the criminal element. If there could be a release to home, that'd be great. But sometimes it doesn't happen like that. I became a lot more familiar with this situation. Two regards. My one friend, may Allah be pleased with him, Ahmad Bilal, who was my big brother, without doubt. Ahmad he had done he had some Fed charges. He did 8.5 on a 10. And when he came home, I was living in Long Beach at the time. I literally had to watch this brother who he came out of prison. He was strong to his faith. I literally had to watch his brother struggle for the lesser part of about 18 years to just keep his head above water. That even when he got off of paper, it was still the idea that he was an ex-con, and it moved away from the fact that he was extremely intelligent. He had a degree. He spoke Japanese. He was an interpreter. He had all of these skills, but that paperwork said that he was ex-con, and that was the way society judged him. The other situation, brothers and sisters, ironically came from a very popular TV show. It's not, well, I don't know how popular it is. It was on TBS. It starred uh, Tracy Morgan. It was called The Last OG. And my friend Owen Smith was the showrunner for The Last OG. So I had to watch in order to help him interview to get the job as showrunner, that means you're ahead of the writers and stuff like that. I had to help myself and help him. I had to go binge watch all of The Last OG, and it just reminded me so much of what um, my good brother Amada went through. So when I was talking to Owen had been in prison, he hang out with people who, you know, he didn't know it, but I had to explain to him a lot of what the challenges were, to the point where he was like, "Preacher, you ain't never been to prison before." I was like, "No, I haven't, but I've been around the situation." And the conundrum, brothers and sisters, is when does the punishment end? In a situation where all we can offer people for crime is just punishment, not education, not real rehab, not a situation where you reintegrate people back into society, it is criminal. It's extremely criminal. Only thing that's somewhat comparable to that is when kids get into special ed. Despite their growth, their advancement, it's extremely hard for a kid to get out of special ed. So when I started talking about this at the beginning, I was angry. I was upset because we know everything about sentencing laws and things like that. I've literally said that the current prison industrial complex is set up to make sure that we lose frequently and we lose quickly. The laws are not set up for rehabilitation. The laws are set up for you to fail, brothers and sisters. And if we know anybody who's in that system, they fail. A lot of times when they come out of prison, it's not a situation scenario. They've been taught life skills or adjustment skills. What you have been given is a hard choice, either this or that. And even with the hard choice, there's no modality for how you educate yourself to deal with particular situations. Some guys that are coming out of prison, let's call it what it is. Some of them are addicts, some of them are alcoholics, because in the prison system, you have the same things, brothers and sisters, that lock them up: drugs, alcohol, assaults, and things like that, the violence, if you will. And so you're not teaching them anything. In fact, you're reinforcing it in a place where this is the soup of the day. Can you imagine, brothers and sisters, that every day you woke up, it wasn't that you were going to your job, it wasn't that you were going to pick up your kids. It was a base thing of, I have to fear and frame everything I do for my life. I have to frame everything in terms of existence right here, right now, to the point where you can't have dreams, to the point where the idea of expectations is just an idea. We talk about mobility uh, a lot of times, and it does have a huge impact on whether people are successful or not. Tell you guys a story. I was a late bloomer. I got my passport. Yeah, there you go. There you go. Um, hey, assalamu alaikum. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, brother Eric. Good to see you on the show. Sister Satana says Norway has one of the best prison reform programs. They will educate you. I'm gonna tell you guys a story. Some years back, I was in Denmark. And we had a show, but the problem was they had a volcano that had erupted, and it was messing up air travel and all of that. So we had a show in Denmark. We had to get to Oslo, Norway. We couldn't get a rental car, couldn't get a train. It was a mess, but we're trying to make the show. So we try to get this money. There was a guy we picked on. His name was Lalu, and I picked on Lalu the whole time. And we literally so desperate to get to Norway, to get Oslo from where we were in Copenhagen. We literally from the stage said, "Hey, is anybody going to Norway? Can you give us a ride? This is three comedians. Can you give us a ride?" Now, the guy that we've been giving a tough time to, my brother Lalu, Lalu raised his hand and goes, "Yeah, I got a new car. I can take you there." We're like, "What?" Of course, we don't know the guy. This is crazy. He goes, "Yeah, I can take you there." And I'm like, "All right, cool." He shows up the next morning, nice Mercedes. We throw our stuff in. We're on the way, driving, and then it hits me like, I don't really even know this dude. My two partners in the back seat, sloppy sleep. You know how it's a sloppy sleep when you fall asleep on another dude? It was sloppy sleep. So I felt like, hey, I need to be the responsible one in the group. Let me talk to my man since I'm riding shotgun, da da da. So I start talking to Lalo. I was like, man, this is a nice car. Man, so what do you do? He goes, nothing. He goes, nothing. I said, well, maybe what, mom and dad buy the car? What's up? He goes, nope. And he proceeds to tell me that he had a little business that he sold. I said, oh, that's cool. That's cool. I said, well, when did you sell it? He goes, I sold a couple years ago. I said, well, brother, when that the pieces are making sense. I said, well, tell me about yourself. And Lalu goes, well, we got a long ride. He goes, yeah, man, I just got out of prison. And I'm thinking to myself, I was not looking for that answer. I don't know the guy. And I'm really ticked off. You know why? Because I just filled up the tank of the car thinking, you just gassed up your own kidnapping. You don't know this dude. And we're sitting there. And of course, I'm looking for something in case I got to bust him over the head while we driving. And I go, so tell me about prison. He goes, yeah, man, I was in prison. I was like, for what? He goes, attempted murder. I'm like, this is not getting better. And he said, yeah, but I'm okay now. And I'm like, I'm thinking U.S. terms. You okay now? He goes, well, how much time did you do for attempted murder? He goes, a year and a half. I said, oh, hell no. He said, no, I did a year and a half. I was like, what do you mean? He goes, well, I was in prison. And I said, well, tell me about your prison, a year and a half. I'm like, you must have had a good lawyer. He goes, no, no, no. I was there and they evaluated me and da da da. And he starts telling me about prison in Copenhagen. And he says, yeah, man, we would go out during the day, work, come home. He goes, we'd be at the place, we order pizza. I'm like, order pizza? Like, I'm mad. Like, yo, this is not the way I wanted prison to be. And he goes, yeah, man, da da da. And he goes, I got my degree and da da da. And he tells me, I met this girl that he brought to the show, his fiance. He goes, yeah, man. He goes, I love that girl. I'm like, yeah. I said, how much? He goes, well, when I was in prison, I go, yeah. He goes, yeah, I broke out to go be with her. Muslim girl. I said, Muslim girl. He said, yeah. He said, I broke out to go be with her. He said, I showed up to her house. She goes, what are you doing? He goes, I broke out of prison to be with you. And she said, go back to prison and finish your time. And he did it. And I'm like, I don't want to get in your personal business, but I think you need to find another wife. But he began to tell me the story that Copenhagen and a lot of the countries over there, as Sister Satana mentioned earlier, they spent a lot of time in restorative process with the inmates, not to punish them for the crime that they did, but to have them understand that it was a crime and try to rehabilitate them to be productive in society. And I said, this is interesting because here I am just a couple days ago reading about people who are getting out of prison under the worst conditions, a pandemic. And the idea is once the pandemic is finished, you're going to come on back to prison. I thought it was madness, brothers and sisters. I thought it was madness. And I asked the question, how can we begin to humanize this process of coming home? Just like any other journey, just like any other path that we take, there are going to be some great decisions, some not so great decisions, some really bad decisions. Is it prudent to make a person articulate the mistakes that they've done over and over and over and over and over again? Can you learn if you're constantly being reminded of this failure? Now, if you take the whole idea of prison out of the situation, if you take somebody, if you take a child, and a child's not able to do something well or exceptionally well, or they do something badly, if you spend time framing that failure for that child over and over and over and over and over again, you're going to have a damaged child. I submit to you, brothers and sisters, that the criminal justice system is the same. Criminal justice reform are words that cannot be in the same sentence. Just like crime and punishment. If you put a slash in the middle of it, they're not speaking to the same aspects of an act, and they're not speaking to the potential of a person. And let's not be naive. It's tough to do anything for inmates. It is tough. America has made it extremely difficult, and in some regards, the inmates make it extremely difficult too, because we're asking them to unlearn something. You see what I'm saying? We're asking them to unlearn something. In some regards, you're asking them to unlearn a system, a rubric that was toxic, a rubric that was damaging to their psyche and emotional state. And we're telling them outside of that space, forget the people and the process that damaged you. You're here now. But when they come here, a lot of times they find that we're not able, we're not compelling I'd say compelling in a way where they feel like we've made investments in their well-being when they got out. And this is no excuse. Recidivism is real, but recidivism says that you make a choice. The only thing I would say about recidivism is if you put it in a situation scenario where the environment is unhealthy or the environment is lacking of meaningful opportunities and options of how to deal with situations, then the recidivism makes sense. One of my favorite movies is Shawshank Redemption. Remember Shawshank Redemption? I love that movie. I could watch that movie over and over and over again. There was a librarian, his name was Brooks. And Brooks was a librarian, and he was happy, and he was giving, and he was caring. And there's a scene where Brooks goes off, and they run down to the library. Brooks has a knife up against the guy's throat, and they ask him, what did you say to Brooks? Because obviously Brooks is out of character. What did you say to Brooks? He said, I was just congratulating Brooks because he's getting out. And they had to take the knife from Brooks's hand, and Brooks openly wept at the fact that he was, brothers and sisters, being released into society, but this is all he knew. Let me juxtaposition that. This was all he knew. And Brooks got out and he couldn't handle it. And Brooks, brothers and sisters, he committed suicide. This is a movie, it's fictional, but he committed suicide. Now, I'm sure that a lot of guys have these feelings of stress, anxiety, inadequacy, because you're also having to do a crash course, understanding that for however many years you're away, 5, 10, 15 years, the world has gone on and they've forgotten your name. Your essence, your existence is not relevant unless it's in that process. Like they say, if you got to be in it to win it. When you're in prison, you're not in it to win it. You're in something else, but you're not in it to win it. And I think about this all the time because, we all deal with that. I mean, we've talked about this on the show before, performing at prisons, doing Eid shows and stuff like that. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that in my own little goofy way, artistic way, I want these guys to have a comedy show so they can have some sense of normalcy. As an OG in the cell said out of Vacaville, he goes, the ability to laugh is the only thing they haven't taken from us. I said, well, brother, I'm going to give you all the laughter I can. And then, but humanizing it, humanize. I mean, I've talked to a lot of, we have in our Muslim community, we have reentry and stuff like that, but they don't really understand the psyche of a person, not only who returns from prison, they don't understand the psyche of a person who goes into prison. Let's put that at the front end of that transition is something that people don't understand. We see the product when they come out, but we don't understand the product when they come in. We're not necessarily, I want to say, updated or familiar with the process whereby you go through a certain amount of situations whereby a criminal outlet is the option that you choose. So I don't want to get on here. I'm not preaching anything like that, and I want to give a shout out. Um, Brother Ibrahim Moss, my adopted big brother. What's up, Ibrahim? Out of Northern Cali. So just one question for the experience with Lalu. Uh, are we challenged to redefine criminal? Yes, yes. Ibrahim, you're correct. And I'm going to tell you why. Because when we put criminal on that, uh, consciously and unconsciously, in a lot of regards, we take the word potential out of it. We remove potential out of it. See, like when you are an addict or you have substance abuse or something that that's debilitating in your character, your spirit, people will look at you, but they look at you that you have potential. Look at rehab outside of prison. Rehab outside of prison is, you have the potential to stop drinking. You have the potential to stop doing drugs. You have the potential to stop being a sex addict. You have all this potential, but the criminal, brothers and sisters, does not have that potential because I believe that the penal system, if you will, the philosophy of the penal system is to make sure that it beats it out of you at all costs. That you don't have aspects of personality, you don't have aspects of individuality, you don't have creative thought. They beat it out of you because that's the thing that allows them to control you. And sadly, some brothers believe that's the thing that allows them to survive, as opposed to fighting against it and having that creativity. But brothers do come out, and this is real. All right. So look, we are over our time. Um, Again, shout out to Imam Johari, who lost his dad. Big shout out to him. But I'm gonna give a shout out to all the brothers who and sisters. Don't forget the sisters. That's a whole nother show. Sisters that are incarcerated because we talk about men all the time. The whew, um, it's tough to be a brother in prison, but it's tougher to be a female. I'm not being funny. It's tougher to be a female in prison because there's just so many. That's a whole nother show. So, Tana, we have to talk about our sisters in prison. I feel bad that I lumped brothers and sisters together now, because that stretch is extremely difficult. So, I'm gonna ask brothers and sisters that we make dua and present out prayers to those who are oppressed. Prison is a capitulation to oppression. They want to make sure that you're never high. They want to make sure that you're never happy. And if it does happen, it's something that's artificial or very, very temporary. It's fleeting. So I want to make sure, and I'm going to try and do a better job of shouting out my brothers and sisters who are behind bars, and shouting out my brothers and sisters' families who are not behind bars, and we're going to send them to ours too, because we want to make sure that they're doing okay. See, that's the other part of criminal justice, and we make sure that they can't take care of their families. I can't put that on criminal justice system. I put that on us. We know who's going to prison. We know how long. We need to adjust our generosity and adjust our philosophy to make sure that we can show these people love and understanding and have a place to come when they're feeling low, when they're feeling confused, they're feeling sad, but also provide them a space where they can feel happy and engaged. All right, let's get to sponsors today. Thank you so much, brothers and sisters. We're gonna give a shout out to www.befinancialindependent.com. Again, that's www.befinancialindependent.com. You can call 1-888-496-6845. Again, that's 1-888-496-6845. And as well, if you're thinking about getting a quality Islamic graduate level education, brothers and sisters, you have to go to Bayan Islamic Graduate School. I did it. You can do it too. And you don't have to be like me. I got my master's in Islamic education, but there's options for Islamic studies, Islamic leadership, as well as one of the top programs, brothers and sisters, for Muslim chaplaincy. They have an MDiv with a specialty in Muslim chaplaincy, and they have a certificate program. Maybe we'll talk about that a little bit more when we bring on the president of Bayan College, Jihad Turk. Now, go to banonline.org. Again, that's banonline.org. So, brothers and sisters, you guys have been familiar. I mean, not familiar. Yeah, I've been familiar. I boast a program where I have people that come on the show. It's like I get to know them. That's probably one of the highlights of the show. That's number one. Number two, that people ask great questions. Ibrahim, thank you, brother. Appreciate your comments. So, everybody, listen, wherever you are these days, when you see a brother that's struggling, or you know somebody who may have taken one of those state vacations or whatever, even if you can't help them, tell them I'm praying for you. Tell them I want you to win. Tell them that what, I like the fact that you're a fighter, and if there's anything I can do, I'm gonna help you fight. Okay, fight the power. The idea that you come out of prison handcuffed increases the chance of your return. Yes. Yes. Thank you, Fight the Power. Appreciate it. So listen, we'll be back on tomorrow, inshallah. Just Allah's will. You know the time, 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Central, and 3 p.m. on the West Coast. I'm Preacher Moss. That's a shout out show. See you tomorrow. Yo, assalamu alaikum. I'm Preacher Moss, comedian extraordinaire, but I like to add a new title to my name. I'm Professor Preacher Moss. You know why? Because I just graduated. Wait a minute, let me get this out of here. This is it. Okay. I'm Professor Preacher Moss, and it's come through the courtesy and the blessing of the Muhammad Ali Scholarship, which came through Bayan Islamic Graduate School. Now, listen, I know a lot of you people are thinking, can I do it? Yes, you can do it. This is the part where I know I'm supposed to say it's easy. It's not easy. Listen, it was easy to get this degree. Trump would be a mufti. I digress. Listen, though, for you brothers and sisters that are interested, go to bayanonline.org, and you could be like me. Put yourself in the picture for Islamic education. Wait a minute, there's a picture right there. Sound like them, everybody. Take care. Preach them all.